Are you an expat living in Germany? Are you an international client looking to do buy-to-let investment in Germany? Then this webinar is for you, because today we are talking about international clients buying property in Germany and how do you get a mortgage. Our expert today in our 41st Berlin Real Estate Talk is Mr. Christopher Reinhardt from Hypofriend. Thank you for your time today, Christopher.
Thanks, man.
Great to have you here. So today we're going to cover a couple of topics. I think one of them, how you get a mortgage. Second of it is how much deposit you need. What's the current interest rate? How you actually can find a property out there. What you need to know about the buying process. And today, of course, we are talking about buying a property in Germany, how you get a mortgage, what you need to do, especially as an international client, what is important for you, what you should check. You have sent us a lot of questions up front. If this is the first time you are in one of our real estate talks, then please be aware of that you can ask questions at any given time. And my colleague Nick will write down the questions, and we of course respond to your questions. We cannot hear you and we cannot see you, but you of course can see and hear us, hopefully. So none of the other people in that webinar today can see or hear you as well, just for you to be aware of. In terms of missing points, if you're missing something, please feel free to check our YouTube channel. You can see this video on our YouTube channel next week, I think Tuesday. And if you want to contact Christopher, please feel free to contact Christopher at any time. Christopher, so just to quickly talk a little bit about yourself, why you're here today. I think you are in senior management at a company called Hypofriend. Hypofriend, can you just explain what this company is doing and how old is this company?
Yes, so we are a mortgage brokering company. We are situated in Berlin in Germany, mainly with our main office, but have colleagues sitting all over Germany. We are working specifically with a lot of expert clients, so clients that are not originally from Germany, but of course also with German clients that apply for a mortgage.
Yeah, perfect. So how many properties have you financed already? Do you know that?
I don't know exactly how many. I've been working for my clients on mortgages for the last 8 years. I would say a couple hundred per year on average.
Okay. And how big is Hypofriend?
Hypofriend currently is around 60 people we have in the company, of which 50% is working as mortgage brokers and the rest is working on the company itself and developing in the engineering department.
Okay. What is your main client? What kind of client are you serving?
Our main client, as I said, is mainly expats who just moved to Germany or has been here for a couple of years and is now thinking about getting into the real estate market and doesn't understand yet how the German mortgage market works, but wants to invest and stay here.
Okay. May I ask you, how did you end up in the mortgage section?
I ended up here after my studies of economics. I studied economics here in Berlin myself, and after that I looked for jobs. I was always interested in finance, and then over a couple connections I had with friends, I heard about mortgage brokers and then went through training and started as a mortgage broker.
In our discussion just before the show today, you said that you are originally from Berlin.
Yes,
which is
born and raised here.
Born and raised here, which is very rare to meet someone in Berlin who's actually born in Berlin. You are now doing this for around 8 years already.
Yes.
You have financed a couple of hundred properties every year. And I think Hypofriend has done, according to the website, more than 1 billion euros since the establishment, which was in 2018. Is this correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So not that long ago.
Not that long. That's quite a big number. There are a couple of topics we're going to cover, of course, today. So first of all, I would like that you explain to our clients today and maybe the future clients for you, how does the mortgage process work? What should be the first step for an international client living in Germany to get a mortgage?
Okay, so the first step should always be to reach out to a mortgage consultant when you think about buying a property. Because as soon as you do that, you can basically lay the groundwork for a later mortgage to actually be successful. So you are able to understand your affordability. You can understand how mortgage options work and how do they affect the mortgage in your personal situation. And then this enables you to actually look for properties with a much clearer focus.
Okay. So what is a typical client asking you? What's the first question they're asking?
Yeah, typical question that we get a lot, of course, from foreign clients is, what can they actually get a mortgage when they are not German? And this is, of course, a valid question, but for this, of course, in Germany, there are solutions for clients who are living here, who are working here. As long as you can pay off a mortgage, you can also get a mortgage.
So your passport is not important.
You should have a valid passport.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter whether or not you're from the EU or from outside of the EU. As long as you're working here and have a stable income, you can get a mortgage for a property in Germany.
We discussed a little bit about the kind of residency you're having in Germany. Can you please explain that?
Yes. So especially when clients come from outside of the European Union or have a passport that's not from the EU, then they have to apply for a residency permit that's usually valid for like 2 or 4 years. And then there are different kinds of residency permits, like a regular working visa, or a bit more long-term when it comes to actually getting a blue card for higher paid jobs or people with higher education.
So what kind of different residency do you check? I mean, if I come to Germany, let's say I'm coming to Germany now, I'm not a non-European citizen, I have a job, it's the second month, third month, I realize it's difficult to find a rental apartment, I give you a call and say, hi, Christopher, my name is Achim, how does it work? What kind of residency would you check first?
In the end, as soon as you have a valid residency permit, it does not matter if it's for 2 years, 4 years, or 10 years for some of the UK clients, for example.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're able to work here, you can get a mortgage.
Okay, fine. Are there any differences of interest rate depending from which country I'm from, or?
No, the interest rates are the same.
Yeah.
Some banks don't finance all clients, so some have stricter requirements when it comes to your residency permit. But in general, the banks that offer you a mortgage while you have blue card or temporary residency will give you the exact same interest rate that a German client would get.
Okay, so there's no real discrimination as such.
That's important for the banks.
Yeah, that's important. Okay. In terms of market changes, I think when people contact you nowadays and a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, the property market was quite different. So what have you seen in the past 12 months?
Yeah, of course, really important is the higher interest rate that we see at the moment, which had a big impact on the affordability for most clients. So mortgages that cost you like 1,500 euros in the past now are probably costing you 2,300 to 2,500 euros. So it is a big change for how big of a property you can go for at the moment compared to what you could afford a couple of years back.
Can you see already different clients getting a mortgage?
Actually, we see that a lot of clients go for the regular mortgages somewhere between 200 and 800,000 euros. So what we normally see in the bigger cities. Bigger mortgages are a little bit less common nowadays in a lot of parts.
But this was different in the past?
Yeah, it was just more affordable to get these kind of mortgages. But now if you then look at monthly rates of 8,000 to 9,000 euros, not a lot of people can afford that.
Okay. So when it comes to affordability, what kind of minimum deposit do I need as an international client?
So ideally, you should always try to cover the purchase fees. So the property transfer tax, notary fees, and if you buy from a real estate agent, then a real estate agent's commission. That is always an ideal scenario. But as soon as that is done, everything else that you could bring as additional down payment simply has an impact on the interest rate. So you can improve your interest rate if you bring more, but as soon as you cover the purchase fees, that is a good threshold for the banks.
Fantastic. That's actually good news. I think a lot of clients who are contacting us on a daily basis think they need 30% deposit and or even more, and that's simply not true. Correct?
Correct.
So you need just to pay the transaction costs if everything else works out, right?
Correct.
So what kind, let's say in every area of Germany, the transaction costs are of course a little bit different. Anything between 6 to 15% transaction costs, depending on the stamp duty. I think in Saxony, or they just have changed it, I think last year, Bavaria.
Exactly. Every federal state has different regulations.
Yeah.
But I think most of them are somewhere between 8 to 12% in most cases.
Yeah.
And this is what you should aim for.
Okay. So I think that's the first thing you should take away from this real estate talk today, is that you need about, I would say 10, 12, maybe let's say 15% of that purchase price just to cover the transaction cost. Maybe you want to buy a new kitchen or furniture or anything else, removal company. So that should be the number you should have in mind.
Okay.
Then we have the next hurdle, right? That's basically hurdle one. What's the next hurdle? I think the next hurdle is, does my monthly cash flow work, right?
Exactly.
Which is you are checking that, correct?
Exactly. We always look into whether or not this mortgage payment is sustainable with your current income. And this is, of course, important because the banks not only check whether or not your income works now, but also in the future. So especially with the high interest rates at the moment, if your interest rate ends in the next 10 years, the banks will look into, can you also still afford the mortgage with a higher interest rate, maybe in the future even. So long-term sustainability is a big factor for the last 2 years, I would say, from the bank's perspective.
Okay. What is a ballpark figure in terms of cash flow?
Ideally, you should not pay more than 50% of your income for a mortgage, because you have to consider there are additional costs, annual taxes, you have to pay for water, heating, internet, and all of these costs. So therefore, I would really say maximum 50%. It used to be more in the area of 30%. That has shifted a bit because it got just more expensive. So to be really comfortable, I would say 30%.
Yeah. If
you want to max out your affordability, still don't go above 50.
Okay. So that's the second hurdle. So let's say someone earns, I think most of your clients who are contacting you, they would earn, the household income would be maybe 4,000 euros, 5,000 euros. But what is a realistic figure? What do you think?
Of course, always depends on which city we are talking about. So we, of course, have clients who work in Munich. They have to earn a little bit more to be able to afford a property over there. But other cities like Berlin, also not cheap, but a little bit cheaper than Munich, I would say around 4,000 to 6,000 euros for a family home.
Yeah. Okay. So so that means if I, let's say, earn 4,000 euros, it start at the lower end per month, then I can pay up to 2,000 euros for the mortgage if it's 50%.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that will be the maximum.
That should be the maximum.
Yeah. So more likely, we're talking about 1,200 euros, a month would be better, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Is there, I mean, just to understand the bank. So the bank, basically, I come to you as a client, you're not charging me fees, is correct?
Exactly. We, as a mortgage broker, we are always paid for by the bank. We get a commission from the bank later on, somewhere between 1 and 1.5%. This is only a commission we get paid for if we successfully place a mortgage with them. This is not an extra cost for our clients, and they don't get any invoice from us as well, because the banks are taking care of that, because they also don't have the extra cost of having an own in-house consultant going through the entire work.
Okay, got it. So there's no real advantage for me running around, going to a couple of lenders, banks, and trying to get a better deal than you do.
Exactly. We can basically, after one consultation, I can check on our platform which banks work. Our platforms, we work on different platforms all over Germany, and we have around 750 banks that we can compare. So that's a lot of time that you would have to spend on consultations if you want to match what we can offer.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of timing, I think we both agree that the property market has changed a little bit, and that there is less demand in the past than in the past. So what has changed from your perspective?
People are more careful about properties, what they currently buy. because also you see that all over the news at the moment with higher energy efficiency requirements. If you buy an old house now, and this is on the upper end of your affordability, you still have to think about maybe to invest in the next couple of years. So a lot of people think about the future and what potential additional investments they have to do, or right away go into something that is more renewable already with higher energy efficiency, where they don't have to worry about that for the next year.
So this is a great topic, higher energy efficiency. So would international clients also be able to get these special loans by the government?
Yes, the public fundings that we have in Germany are not exclusively for Germans. So if you get a mortgage in Germany and you get approved for a mortgage, we can always include the same public fundings that any German client could get.
Okay, what are the current interest rates there?
It really depends. So what most clients can always include is the regular home ownership program. So just for yourself to buy something to live in. Interest rates there are not that great, currently around 3.7%, but especially when it comes to energy efficiency loans, if a property reaches the required energy efficiency, you can get 100, maybe even up to 150,000 euros for interest rates around 1.5%.
Okay, so that's that makes a big difference between 1.5% interest and 3.5%.
Definitely,
yeah. Okay, so that's a big topic. So if you guys are running out there and trying to get a mortgage, just make sure that the energy label is in the right area. Correct. Yeah. How do you call that energy standard?
So this is from in Germany. The public lender is the KfW that provides these loans, and everything as of KfW 40 standard, so 40 or plus or lower than 40 is eligible for the public funding.
Okay, fantastic. So that would mean that if I come to you and say, hey, Christopher, I have a property that would apply for KfW funding, you would give me 100,000 euros, just an example, for 1.5% interest. And let's say the property costs 400,000 euros. I just have to borrow the other 300,000.
Exactly. Every time you approach me with a property that you like, I will always check what kind of public funding would fit that property.
Okay.
And then we automatically include it if it makes sense for you.
Okay, perfect. Then I have a question in terms of the timing itself. How long does it take before I get that confirmation from you?
So when it just comes to the affordability, whether or not you can afford something, we can do that in the first consultation. We go over your personal situation, and afterwards I can tell you whether or not you can get a mortgage. When it comes to later on actually getting a mortgage approved by the bank, that of course requires a lot more documents. Current assessment time of these documents by the banks varies, but around 1 to 2 weeks is normal.
Okay, well, that sounds pretty straightforward, Christopher. So, Nick, are there any questions in the chat at the moment for that topic? You're just noting down? Okay, perfect. So let's go through a topic, a couple of points we have got there. So I think we figured that you get paid by the bank. So I will not have to pay you as a client, which is always very positive. Are there any main banks, main lenders you would mention there, or are there so many different lenders?
As I said, it's 750 banks.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know where the clients are from location-wise. So just reach out to us. We have a consultation, and we can look into the big lenders all over Germany as well as a small local.
So I should go on your website, and how does the process work?
Exactly. Go on our website, sign up for an appointment. There you can put in your personal details after the first consultation is done, and then we will together go through everything and show you which lenders are available for you and which of these are the cheapest.
So then there's a question from one of our clients. How do I know that the price is right when buying a property?
That's always a really important topic, of course, because especially right now, you have to see that you don't overspend on a property. When you reach out to us and show me a listing that you found online or something that you got from a real estate agent, I will always check the property value of that property to see what a bank would assign in terms of a value to that property, to make sure that this is actually something that has good chances of getting an approval later
on. What are the main risks I should be aware of as a client?
I would not say there are big risks for a client, because in the end, the entire process is free of charge from our side. So at any point in time, you can decide if the property does not fit. If you want to cancel the process, you can. There's no liability or whatsoever. At the end, of course, when you want to buy a property, you have to sign in the end at the notary appointment, and only then will you be bound to that contract.
Okay. We just talked about mortgage rates. You just said 3.5%, 3.7%. What is a typical mortgage rate at the moment for an international client?
That is really a hard question, because of course that changes on a daily basis. I would say at the moment, the best possible interest rate that you could get if you bring a big amount of down payment is around 3.5%. Average 100% financing at the moment goes between 4 to 4.5%.
Okay. In terms of deposit, I think we addressed that. I think you need to minimum the transaction costs and maybe a small deposit in addition. Is this correct?
This is ideal. What I would recommend, if you have a permanent residency or another EU residency, it is possible to get a little bit more.
Yeah.
The interest rates are not always favorable.
So then I have a question. How am I protected when buying in Berlin off plan?
What exactly do you mean with off plan?
Sorry, off plan might be my British English, though, if it's a property that has not been built yet.
Okay. So something from a developer.
Yes.
In the end, you have, of course, the official contract where the developer will state what exactly will be finished or will be constructed and in what time frame. So in the end, if then there are certain delays, the developer needs to reimburse you if there are additional costs or if it takes longer. So therefore, you are always secured through the official legal contract, which will be notarized in Germany through a notary.
But let's say I'm buying something off plan from a developer and he will start construction in 6 months' time, and I sign the mortgage contract with you today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you protect me that I'm not paying interest for a loan which I'm not using because the developer hasn't started building yet?
Okay, here important is, if you go for such a loan in Germany, the mortgage will always be paid out in several installments. So the bank will take care of the money the entire time, and they will only pay out the installment as soon as they get an invoice from the developer for the completion of a certain step in the construction. So therefore, you really only pay the money to the developer for what has been finished. And also, at the end, the bank will say, okay, the last invoice will only be paid out if everything is constructed in the way it was promised in the beginning.
Okay. In terms of energy regulation, so we have on the one thing the new builds, which has the KfW 40 branding, which means I get lower mortgage rates.
Yes.
But then I also have a lot of old apartments that maybe need some renovation. Maybe I'm buying a family house. Maybe are there any things I need to know as a client in terms of the energy side of things from your side?
Yes, of course. So a lot of discussion is going on by our politicians at the moment to what kind of energy efficiency is necessary, what kind of modernizations are required if you own a house. Here, there are a lot of changes at the moment when it comes to these kind of requirements. So this is something where you have to be aware of at the point of time when you buy a property. What is the energy efficiency? What kind of heating system do you use? Do you use classic fossil fuels, or do you already have renewable energies in the house? And if not, you have to transfer probably in the future to get a new heating system, new windows, or do certain improvements on your energy efficiency.
Great. So I would now go through the questions. Thank you, Nick. So we've learned our lesson, because last time Nick was just repeating the question from the chat. Now he's handing over the piece of paper, and he has a very nice handwriting, I have to say, Nick. Well done. Much better than mine. Thank you for that. So for someone buying for investment and who is not a German resident, but does hold a German passport, will he have access to higher LTVs, so LTV is loan to value, and more competitive interest rates compared to someone who doesn't?
That's not too easy to answer, because in general, I would say most banks will give you the same interest rate, because your situation, if you're not a resident in Germany but working in the United States, or for example, we have a lot of clients who work in Dubai, the income situation is hard to evaluate by the banks. So they will always put most focus on the property. And the property is the same whether or not it's bought by a German client or by someone who has no ties to Germany. So interest rates should not make too much of a difference. There are certain local banks who prefer to give you a loan when you have certain ties to Germany, just for legal reasons, that you understand all contract work and everything. But in general, I would say there's not a big difference in interest rate. Loan to value ratio also is more or less the same requirements for Germans or non-Germans.
Okay. So basically there's no difference if I'm working in Germany and living in Germany, asking you for a mortgage, or if I'm living, let's say, in Dubai or another country which is outside of Europe, asking you for a mortgage in terms of interest rate. They're the same?
There's a difference in requirements when it comes to how much equity you need to bring.
Okay.
So most banks don't like to provide mortgages to the so-called tax foreigners, clients who work somewhere abroad, just because the income is hard to predict. If you are in Germany, it's definitely easier for the banks and therefore less work for them. Therefore, the interest rates are most of the time then cheaper if you live in Germany and work here.
Does a German passport help?
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I think that was another part of that question. So I have to bring more equity, a higher deposit through the deal or through the table if I'm not living in Germany.
Yes.
Okay. So the LTV will be lower, right? So the loan to value will be lower than if you're living in Germany. I think that's just a security from the bank. Is this correct?
Exactly.
To protect themselves. So in case you just disappear and you're not living in Germany, they have no other security, and they just have to do the repossession of the property.
Correct.
And then sell it on. I think that is the risk.
With the risk that the value in the end on a forced auction is not what you would get on the normal market.
Good. Then we have another question. Can you clarify the mortgage term available, the mortgage as opposed to the fixed rate? So just repeat. Can you clarify the mortgage term available, mortgage terms, I would say, available?
Yeah. So the difference between interest rate fixation and the duration of the loan. So how it works in Germany is when you get a mortgage, your monthly rate, of course, dictates how long it takes to repay the loan. That is the overall term of the contract. Usually the average is around 25 to 35 years. And then you can choose in Germany how long you want to have the current interest rates fixed for. You can go for no fixation. You can go for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and everything in between, of course, up to 35 years. So the overall term means how long does it take to repay, and the fixed term or the fixation means how long your interest rate is written in stone.
Good. I hope that answered your question. If not, please respond to that answer and just to precise your question. There's a second part to it. If there is a requirement to take a principal, I think principal means repayment of capital, and interest repayment mortgage, I am led to believe that a 50-year-old would be restricted to 15 to 17 years nominal retirement age. There's a funny word in Germany which is called Vokri. You can forget that straight away, don't worry. But maybe you want to explain that. I think it's asking about people going into retirement, right?
Exactly. And this plays into the whole topic of sustainability of the income. So even if you are 50 or even 60 and the mortgage would theoretically run into your retirement, this is something I mentioned earlier, the banks need to know what happens in the future when you retire. Can you still afford the property? So just because you have a high income at the moment does not mean you have a higher retirement income. And then as long as your retirement income is high enough to sustain a mortgage, there's no or there's nothing that would speak against having a mortgage, even if you're not the youngest anymore.
Yeah. So in my what is called cash flow needs to work. So as long as you can prove to the bank that there is enough income, you should be fine. Yeah, so I think that's more like common sense, isn't it? So retirement is not a huge problem.
Unless maybe you have a big retirement insurance that is paying out 200,000 euros in 15 years, then of course, that also enables you to repay the mortgage.
So then we have a couple of questions. So one of them is from an Irish citizen. I live in the European Union island and thinking of relocating to Berlin and would like to purchase an apartment for myself to live in. I would like to get information on the legal process, taxes, etc., and what to look out for when buying a property in Germany, as law is very different in Ireland. I think I need to help you here a little bit. Please start with the first part.
Yes, so I don't know about the law in Ireland, but when it comes to the process in Germany, first of all, as I said earlier, my recommendation is always, when you think about buying in Germany, even if you're not yet in Germany, hit our website, set up a call, and we can look into your situation and explain the entire process for you, because it, of course, is important for the bank to know when will you come to Germany? Will there be a transition from your current job to a new job here? Or will your employer send you as an expat to Germany? There are different regulations. In terms of the process, you look for a property, you make an offer, and then if your offer is accepted, you apply for the loan in Germany. And then once you have the loan approval, you usually go to the notary afterwards and sign the official contract, get everything notarized. And then it takes usually around somewhere between 2 and 8 weeks to get all the legal process completed by the notary until the actual handover of the keys and the property happens.
Well, I couldn't explain that any better. Oh, that fantastic. I think there are a couple of things that I would like to add to what you just said. So the legal process in Germany is quite different to Ireland and other countries. The German system works with notaries, and the notary in Germany is different to other, because I lived so many years overseas, so I know that a little bit. So we don't have two lawyers who do the exchange of contracts. Here we have one notary. The notary is independent and is being paid by the buyer. So if you are looking to purchase a property, you pay the notary. But the role of the notary in Germany is quite different. He's acting for the two parties. So one of them is the seller and the other one is the buyer. And he has to make sure that the money, if you wire the money to the seller, that you get the property. So he's guaranteeing that, and vice versa. So he guarantees to the buyer, if he transfers the money, that he gets the property. And I think for you, that's quite important to know. So everything that is being reserved, signed, any documents before that notary appointment in Germany are valid nothing. So yes, we can do reservations. Yes, you can sign a mortgage contract or make a reservation for a mortgage contract. I think, but that's pretty much it. If something happens, if the seller pulls out last minute, or you are buying it and then, oh no, I've changed my mind, nothing's going to happen. Except maybe that you have to pay a couple of tickets to fly to Germany, etc., and all these kind of things. Legal process, I think you explained that very well. Thank you. There's nothing to add. Taxes, we have on our YouTube channel a video dedicated to taxes for people living in Germany. The main taxes you need to check is your income tax in Germany, because if you're living in Germany, earning the money in Germany, there's income you need to pay. Of course, there are transfer tax. If you purchase a property in Germany, you have the different transfer taxes. They're different in every province of Germany. Every state is different. But ballpark, you can budget around 6% the transfer tax. And then, of course, you have a rental income. If you have rental income, you have to pay again on your income in Germany, the income tax on the rental income, etc., etc. In general terms, taxes are progressive in Germany, progressive rate. So it's all written in Germany in the law, very detailed law on taxes, crazy detailed. There are a lot of exceptions in Germany, a lot of loopholes, a lot of things you need to be aware of. So in Germany, we always use a sworn-in tax accountant, so someone who is registered as a tax lawyer or a tax accountant. Most people are doing this, especially entrepreneurs. I think that's important, that you need some tax legal advice. So that's not just between him or me, just so you need to talk to a tax accountant on that one. Yeah. Nick, are there more questions? I hope you're not running out of time here. So many questions today. Thank you, Nick. Do the banks?
Thanks.
Banks, okay. Do the banks that you deal with require foreign buyers living abroad who are purely buying as an investment come to Germany to obtain the mortgage?
In most cases, yes. For the simple reason that if you don't sign in Germany, the banks usually need a legal opinion whether or not your signature abroad is actually valid. And this is something the banks don't really like. Legal opinion usually costs something around 4,000 to 5,000 euros. And usually a ticket to Germany, I don't know where you're from, but even from Australia to Germany, you can get something for 4,000 euros, I would say. So,
yeah. So I think that's I think if you would sign them, I mean, I think there are a couple of lenders who make an exception to that one.
There are always exceptions,
but very few.
Exactly. Or you can maybe give someone a power of attorney who lives in Germany who can sign in your name if you know someone over here.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question. The next, as an expat, how our property secured? Is our property secured when we move out of Germany or the European Union? Handing over to a management company will be profitable in terms of return of investment. Wow, I'm not sure if you could answer.
I mean, I don't know whether or not the management company will still make the entire thing profitable in terms of return on investment. But most of the time, when you think about leaving the country, I would suggest looking into that topic, speaking with a management company and seeing whether or not they can actually provide a service that makes it worthwhile for you.
Yeah, I think our sister company called Black Label Property Management, we manage over 1,200 apartments here in the region of Berlin and of course in Leipzig as well. And I can tell you straight away, before you purchase a property, all of our clients are getting a cash flow analysis. So we make an assumption on the rental income in case you are not living in the apartment yourself, so that you actually know that the rental income in case you're leaving Germany is big enough to pay off the mortgage. So you are flexible. I think that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. So that also gives you a better feeling as a broker that in case the client has a job maybe somewhere else in the world, that he has enough rental income to pay off the mortgage, makes life much easier for everyone and gives you security. Absolutely. Return of investment, very tough to say because I don't know your equity employed. If you put on very little equity, the return is fantastic because you just have a little amount of equity that has to perform a high rental income. And vice versa, if you put on a lot of equity, then the return is lower because, but also the risk is much lower. Yeah. So that's something you need to talk to your real estate agent on that one. So how can we find apartments? On the internet sometimes you don't. I think how you can find apartment, I think the first question you should do is you should ask yourself, why do you want to buy an apartment and where you want to buy it? And then what kind of needs you're having, big, small, expensive, cheap. Can you commute to work? Where is your job? If you have children or you plan to have children, is your apartment big enough? Where is the next school? Is the school as well in English or is it just in German? What is important for you? For how long you need the apartment? If you need the apartment for 1 or 2 years, I don't think you should buy it, to be fair, because we have these pretty high transaction costs that you just should keep on renting. But if you want to buy an apartment, then and you know that you're going to stay a couple of years in Germany, my experience is everyone who is planning to stay more than 4 years or 5 years in Germany, you should buy because it's cheaper, especially when you have a good return of investment that the cash flow works out for you. Then you definitely should buy. The first step I would advise for international clients is to, of course, go on the internet, contact in your area. I'm not sure where you're from, but in every city, there are certain international agents, every big city. In Berlin, I would call it 5 to 10 good international agents. It's very limited with international real estate agents, like with you guys.
Exactly.
It's not a main business, right? So maybe you have 4 or 5 competitors here, people who are doing a similar job, but not hundreds.
Correct.
And for German clients, they have hundreds of agents and same as mortgage brokers. So we are working in a niche market. Yeah. So good international agents should help you to point you towards the right direction. Why do most lenders insist on foreign investors flying to Germany for a face-to-face meeting? I think we had that question already. Should be answered. If not, please feel free to contact us or contact Christopher on hypofriend.com, correct? .de. There you go. What happens if I type in hypofriend.com? Where do I end up with?
I actually don't know. I hope you are redirected to our website.
Okay. Compare it to buying England, where none of them have this requirement. Yeah, that's the difference between UK and England. You need to fly in and sign, or you go for a different lender who doesn't have the same requirement, but usually then the deposit is higher. So it's up to you what you prefer. What is the best bank to ask for a loan in Berlin?
It really depends on your personal situation. If you speak with us, we look into your personal situation and look into what is the best bank for you.
I have another point, interested in buying an apartment in the near future using company dividends. I'm not sure which direction your question is being pointed towards. If it's toward taxes, then that's a tax topic. So he's a finance broker. I'm a real estate agent. So we are not the right.
Someone else.
Someone else. There's a tax expert, I think. Using company dividends, if you want to buy the property with a company, I think that's an option. Are there any differences between buying as an individual or buying with a company?
Yes, there are differences because the question is who is liable for the mortgage in the end, the company or you as a private person. In the end, when it comes to dividends, if you want to use them basically as a down payment or deposit for, it's important to see and show for the bank whether or not these dividends can be confirmed, they're guaranteed, or if it's just a calculation that you might end up getting something in 5 to 6 years. That is, of course, something where the bank really look at how reliable that is.
So we have another question. What happens if I decide to leave Germany in the middle of the mortgage? So I think during the fixed mortgage rate, how can I sell the apartment or transfer or complete the mortgage?
So first of all, you can simply rent out the property. You don't need to sell the property. Most banks actually don't mind if you decide to rent out the property later on, and they also don't care if you then move out of the country or not. If you want to sell the property, either put it on the internet yourself or look for a real estate agent who can market the property for you.
Yeah, I think it depends really on where the market is at the moment. I remember times when people have financed properties with 1 or 2% interest. Now we're talking more at around 4% interest. And if you then find a buyer, in the past you had to pay the bank a penalty. And nowadays, there's no real penalty because they're making more money if they rent the money, if they give the money to someone else. And if there is a penalty, it's very, very small. It's more like an admin fee. Is this correct?
So for everyone who had a mortgage with 1 or even 2%, of course, the banks will more or less give you or let you out of the contract for a processing fee of like 100, 200 euros. But if you get a mortgage right now, and maybe the interest rates stay the same or even go higher, of course, this has to be reevaluated as well.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on that banking situation. So of course you can sell and you can do whatever you want with the property. Just make sure you speak to Christopher in terms of what kind of early repayment penalties might occur to you, what kind of taxes you're having if there's a profit. That's another question for a tax expert. And what is the current market? I mean, how much do you get for the property? Is there actually profit?
Exactly.
If you deduct the transfer costs, if you deduct the agency fees and all the other stuff. So that's an important question for you. I just wanted to add one point. You can rent out the apartment. Yes, you can rent out the apartment, but I think you're aware of that in Germany, the rental market is regulated. So we have to see if it's an old or new building. New buildings, as a rule of thumb, are not regulated, and old buildings are regulated. Then there's a question, what is a new build, what is an old build? Big topic. In every city is a bit different, but rule of thumb is everything that has been built after 2014 is a new build, and everything that's been built before 2014 is an old building, and everything that's been completely renovated, refurbished, again, is considered to be a new build. Yeah, but that's something more like a legal question. I just wanted that you're aware of that. Yeah. So then we have another question on buying with a company. So does the company needs a higher deposit than a private person?
No, I don't see that you need a higher deposit. In the end, it depends on the company performance over the last years. So if you buy as a private person, your current salary or your current income is, of course, checked by the bank. If you want to buy as a company, the banks usually look at the average of the last 3 years of profit reports. If that is positive, then you can also buy as a company with the same amount of down payment that you could get as a private person.
Yeah. Just another point, the company should be based in Germany, I would say.
Yes.
If it's a company based in Cayman or Panama or whatever, it doesn't really help. It's not great for our KYC process, but I think we are clear on that one. It should be a transparent company with a good track record.
Yeah, it just needs to be possible for the bank to evaluate that.
Yeah.
So
I think there is another question in terms of I'm a non-EU citizen married to an EU citizen, but not German. Does this affect or help the process when we are buying a home together?
it depends on your income situation. So for example, if you buy together with a partner or a husband who has a permanent residency, the question is, do you both work or is only one of you working? That could play a role. If the part that has a EU citizenship works and the mortgage can work in this case, then great. If the EU citizen does not work, then the bank will focus on your situation because you have a temporary residency, but also are the one who is basically responsible for sustaining the mortgage. So it works. It always depends on your personal situation, but there are no like big downsides or upsides depending on your marriage. You can finance with whoever you want.
So we have a last question here on the sheet. And then, Nick, how much time we have left? 15 minutes left? Okay, sorry? About 15 minutes, okay. So if there are any other questions in the chat, please let me know and Christopher know, and we would then, of course, have enough time to respond to them in the next few minutes. So last question, buy or build, down payment, how much, taxes and yearly costs of a house compared to renting?
Couple questions.
A lot of questions.
I would say the first question, buy or build, is a personal preference. I would say it's a question of buy an old building, buy something from a developer that's new, or buy a plot of land and build yourself. I would say buying a plot of land and building yourself has a lot of obstacles. You can do a lot of wrong. It takes a lot of effort. So especially for foreign clients, it's not easy. You need a good architect. You need people who are with you through the entire process to make it work properly. Otherwise, buying an old building, buying a new building is just personal preference, what you like.
I just want to add a couple of points. So first of all, if you're here living in Germany and you can oversee the construction phase and you do speak German, that helps a lot, especially when you speak to the handyman craftsmen on the ground, because they usually do not speak English. And you, of course, want to micromanage them. I can tell me you need to micromanage the process. So if that's something you can do and you feel comfortable with that, we're happy to guide you towards the right direction in terms of finding the right contractors and finding international architects as well who speak English, of course, especially when you maybe have inherited a plot of land or something like that. So please contact Christopher or myself for detailed questions on that one. In general terms, it's always easier to buy a finished product in Germany because from the developer, you get a 5-year warranty. It's a new build. And he has to comply with certain standards, not only energy standards, but quality standards, and he's liable for that. So that's a big one, and it always gives you more security. And from a professional developer, please check the track record. So if he has built a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 apartments before, then there's a high security that he's gonna complete that project. You also can check the finances of the developer. In Germany, buying off plan is pretty safe because he needs to come up with a guarantee that he can complete the project. The finances of the developer will only be released after he has confirmed a certain amount of sales in the project. So all of these things are pretty much safe, and please feel free to contact the notary on that one. He also has to make sure on this one. I think then we have the down payment. Is there a difference between buy or build on the down payment, or?
I mean, if you buy a plot of land, then you only pay the property transfer tax and the notary fees on the actual purchase price of the plot of land. So potentially a little bit cheaper than buying an already finished or something from a developer. But otherwise, there's no big difference.
Yeah, exactly. Taxes and yearly costs of a house compared to renting. Good question. Depends where. I mean, I can show you, and I think Christopher as well, certain areas in Germany where taxes are high, but the property prices for a house are very low. So everything depends on the purchase price when it comes to taxes on a house. And renting, again, I mean, in these areas, the rental market is also very weak or cheap. So that means both is lower than, let's say, in Frankfurt, Munich, Berlin, Cologne, the big cities. Then, of course, usually the big cities renting is more expensive than buying in general, right? Of course, it depends on your personal situation. Yeah. But maybe you see that different?
No, actually, completely the same.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions, Christopher, on you as an expert, if there's nothing else from you guys. I mean, you're now on the market for around 8 years. And now the first time that you see the interest went up or have quadrupled, thank you. Difficult word. What do you think is going to happen next? Do we have another increase of interest rates? I know it's looking a little bit in the future, but what's your feeling?
Current prognosis is, of course, more or less impossible.
Yeah.
I think most of the banks are currently on the same page that they plan that the current interest rate level will be the same at least until the end of the year for the next 12 months. And to be honest, everything afterwards depends on external factors where, I mean, we saw that last year with the war starting in Ukraine. That was basically kickstarting everything. So we are, relying on international circumstances, and this is something I have no idea about how that will work out. I have hopes that it will be concluded in some way, and then interest rates hopefully go down. But at the moment, everything is open.
What happens then? Let's say if the war ends, what happens? Inflation goes down. Just as a pure speculation, interest rates will go down.
I mean, we can compare that to the financial crisis in 2008, of course, where once that was over, interest rates started to go down.
Yeah.
Most likely not as fast as we saw last year going up. So it is a process that will take time because the entire economy belongs or is bound to that. So probably we're talking about a time frame of like 5 to 10 years for interest rates to really hit new low levels once that situation happens.
Okay. So everything will be very slow from your feeling. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of buying time, because it's a big topic, is here as well on our YouTube channel, is the right time to buy.
Yes.
And we keep telling our people, our clients who are still hesitant to buy, because they say, oh, Achim, prices next year will be whatever, 50% down. I mean, all these kind of things. And then they're going to start buying. So what's your feeling on that one?
My personal recommendation in this case would be, if you are able to afford a property right now, go for it. Because there are a lot of people who can't afford right now, who are still thinking about it, but they are waiting. So as soon as the interest rates go down, the competition for individual properties will go up significantly, which most likely will also affect the prices. And therefore, if you are able to buy right now with a little bit less competition, you might be able to get a good deal out of it.
You studied economics, right? There you go. I haven't said him that answer beforehand, just to let you know. It's exactly my opinion. And it's someone who studied economics and someone who has studied the market and who does that every year. I mean, you're doing a couple of 100 deals every year. Same do we as Black Label Properties. And so that's exactly the logic. So if you can afford something now and the market went down, I would say, depends, of course, where you are in Germany. Anything between 5 to 15% prices went down already. And they haven't went up in the past 12 months, even though cost of construction went up, inflation went up, everything went up. So prices are going down, rents are going up, inflation is high, renting is very, very expensive. And if you can afford the mortgage rate, and if you can afford it with a small deposit, with let's say 4% interest, and then you basically secure yourself for 20 years, 25, whatever you can do, very long period, fantastic. Then you have solved the housing topic for you. So that's why it's so important as a buyer to enter now the market, check with you guys what you actually can afford, and make a compromise. Find a solution for your life now, and make sure that even if you buy, and let's say you're working now for whatever, a blue chip company in Berlin or a Frankfurt or another big capital in Germany, international client, and then a couple of years later, you get headhunted by, I don't know, Microsoft or Google or whatever in the States, then you leave Germany, it's not a problem. Actually, you just keep on renting. That's what you just said. Sorry, you start renting it out, and if not, you just sell the apartment. It's very likely that in a 5-year time period, even interest rate will stay at 4%, just and nothing changes. The price will not drop again by 15 or 20%. We already have seen a big correction in the market, 10 to 15% in average. And that means that I don't think, and none of the other guys are believing, that the market will continue to go down by 10 or 20%, at least not in the capitals, and at least not in the big cities where we have a lot of demand. Yeah, so that hasn't changed. Yeah, I think that's all about the financing topic. Christopher, thank you for having you today here. I hope your English is fantastic. I hope we will see each other again. And yeah, thank you for watching today, the 45th Berlin Real Estate Talk, covering mortgages, financing options for international clients, wherever you live. When you want to buy in Germany, contact hypofriend.de, contact Christopher, make an appointment, make sure that you know what you can afford. You would be surprised that you actually can afford much more than you are believing at the moment, and the spirit is good, and use your chances out there, especially now, especially when you have a little bit more deposit. You should go out there and start looking to buy. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.